Hello, this is Scott at Aquascape ATX. Today I'm going to talk about media types for your garden beds and aquaponics. And I'll walk around as I'm talking about this and show you what I have used and maybe what I would use different in the future. So initially, all my beds, reading the research, I started with these expanded clay balls. And they work, decent. And most of these beds here are the first four I did are the expanded clay balls. After a while, looking at the cost of them, I basically, and some other issues, I switched to gravel. And there's pluses and minuses to each of these. The first thing to talk about is weight. Gravel is much heavier, so you're going to need beefier supports. These, I've doubled up, these wooden beds with extra framing and supports down on the bottom there. Of course, these beds are 100% masonry, so I could put whatever I want. And that one was aerated with expanded clay. This one I built later, and I just used gravel in it, and I did mix in some of the biochar. So, thinking about the different medians, and there's not necessarily absolute here or which one's better than the other. I guess the short of it is, I think doing it now, I would go and use a very fine, like a 3/8 inch lava rock. Kind of takes the advantages of gravel, some of the advantages of the aerated clay, kind of the best of both. But there is a cost price. So the first thing on weight, gravel and lava rock are going to be very heavy. You're going to need to make sure you have a strong foundation so things don't fall over. Cost, the cheapest by far is gravel. Like as I researched this today, the gravel was $11 a cubic foot, lava rock's $23 a cubic foot, and expanded clay is $37 a cubic foot, and those are all delivered. I guess the gravel did not include delivery, but it's pretty small from Home Depot or Lowe's. So definitely gravel is by far the cheapest. pH effect with gravel, depending on your type of gravel, and I think mine is this type. If it's I forget the type, I'll have to look it up. But basically it will raise your pH. If you put some acid on it and it bubbles, that means it's going to raise your pH. So one thing I have with my extensive amount of gravel here, I'm constantly adding phosphoric and nitric acid to keep the pH down in the, around the 7 range. Expanded clay, those typically are pH neutral, so that's not an issue. That's one of its strong points, I would say. And then lava rock is a hit or miss, just like gravel. Depending on the type of rock that's in there, it can be a high pH or low pH. As far as filtering, gravel by far is the strongest because you have a lot of tiny, it's a small size, so this does a great job of filtering. Actually, to the point that it will clog up when you have a heavy biological load. This one here I've stirred up. This one here you can see it's not running at the moment, but you can see a lot of sludge built up on there, and that will happen with the clay, where the expanded, or that'll happen with the gravel. The expanded clay is less susceptible to that. I've not seen it, though. If you put, at some point it will overload as well and become a goopy mess. But and then you have to pull it and wash it basically. But the clay, the gravel is definitely more sensitive to that. I have not used with the lava. I assume it would be pretty close to the gravel on that respect. So pretty good on filtering, but you need to be conscious of. You need to be using, like I've added in these rotary flow filters, and these need to be vacuuming out with a pump once a week. And then the recent thing I've added is actually a cartridge filter, and this seems to be working pretty good. My big pond up here is already clearing up pretty significantly. So on support, the expanded clay definitely works out best. That is the lightest weight. So if you're doing a plastic window box kind of beds like these over here, and you're worried about weight and support, you're still gonna have water in it, so it doesn't alleviate the problem, but at least you don't have the weight of the clay. So weight wise, expanded clay wins there. Aeration, I would say the expanded clay definitely is better there. The gravel, since it's such a great filter, it will clog up fairly quickly, and then you can end up with dead spots where you get anaerobic bacteria growing in there, and you get that, that sour or the sulfury kind of smell. And this bed here is actually clogging up pretty periodically. You have to stir up the gravel. You see I've attempted to kind of get some flow pass to get it to spread out more, but it's actually overflowing back into the bed because the bed is clogged up enough that it's not flowing well. Microbes, the expanded clay is definitely the winner on microbes, but lava rock's pretty close behind it. They have natural porous material, since it's expanded and aerated, that the nitrogen fixing bacteria can thrive and have a place to hang out during the float and drain cycles you have with this particular design of aquaponics beds. Gravel is just a surface, so it's not nearly as good on the microbe, place for microbes to hang out. That's basically kind of the rule of thumb. Is if you're going with gravel, then probably should figure twice as much as you would normally for the aerated clay. Stability is a nice thing I liked about gravel, and one of the reasons I switched to it. When I planted some okra plants in one of these beds last year, the plants were growing up, and they got really big. I mean, they were 2-inch stalks on them, and as they got big and heavy, they start tipping over, falling over, and they had to come up with some kind of supports for them. Now in this situation, now that I've got these trellises on there, not a problem. The trellis is going to support anything that's growing in there, so really the stability issue is not as much a big deal. But you will find with the expanded clay that they don't support things very well. The other issue would be another item to think about is buffering. And what I like, really the material that's best for that is this biochar, which I've incorporated in a lot of my newer beds. And it's basically you burn wood, get it to the point that it's kind of a charcoaly, crumbly state like this, and then hose it down so that it stops it from burning all the way into ash. And I actually did a video and published it on that, how to do that. If you're curious, just look up making biochar. So that's kind of the overview on substrates. Like I say, there's not you got to pick cost versus weight versus the nitrogen fixing bacteria places to hang out. I think a good, I would say, trade-off between them all right now, though I don't have experience with it, would be the lava rock. Most of my new ones I have done with gravel. I think if I do another bed, which I'm not sure I'm going to get that by my wife, but if I do another bed, I would probably use some lava rock in it. And then, of course, mix in a good amount of biochar. And the biochar, you can incorporate up to 30% in your substrate, and the biochar is really nice for buffering nitrates and minerals, all those micronutrients and minerals that the plants need. If you add something to it, you can get spikes because it's all just water, but the biochar will absorb a lot of those compounds, and then as the levels drop in your water, they will release it. So they kind of act like a big sponge for minerals and nitrates And they're a good place for microbes to hang out too. They like hanging out in biochar. That's why it's a common, I mean not super common, but people talk a lot about using biochar in regular conventional gardening as well for that same feature of buffering the nitrates and minerals and being a place for microbes to hang out in the soil. So hope that helps with your investigation into what substrate to use. And of course, reach out to me. I do consulting and like to talk aquaponics. So if you have questions, like come see my system, feel free to reach out to me, and I will try and put a link to this spreadsheet that I was talking to that I put together on substrates in the comments. Thanks. I guess this would be in the descriptions. And if you liked the content, please click the like and the subscribe button. Those help my metrics so that I can reach more people. Have a good day.